My name is Mngobi Banelenjogo, the Program Manager for the Master of Development in Planning and Management, and I'll be the Program Director for this auspicious gathering of the Master of Development in Planning and Management in collaboration with our sister department, the Department of Planning and Management. My role is an easy one because it's just to call people to deliver their items, and then when they take too much time, I have all the privileges to kick them out, to kick them off the stage. So without wasting any time, allow me to invite our Executive Dean, Professor Sibanda, who this is his family, so we are his children. So we cannot start without him allowing us to start and allowing us to feel at home. Prof, over to you.
Is it? Okay, good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Njoko, for selling me as a very young man. I like that. At least somebody can notice that I'm still young. And hence you said that I'm with my family. And indeed, you are my family. But I can say that you are not going to be the graduate school of leadership that I know if you were to stick to the so-called African time, which is not even African time. If you don't have that thing, African time, that is late. Africans know how to do things right and on time. With that said, my task is to open this particular event, that is the public lecture, titled The Role of Entrepreneurship and Innovation in Rural Development and Poverty Alleviation. With that said, allow me, all of you distinguished guests, I can see quite a number of them, colleagues, students, members of our community present here. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome you to this public lecture event jointly hosted by the TEFLOP Graduate School of Leadership, TGSL. And then this is the home of TGSL. That is, if you don't know what TGSL is, it is basically that leadership business school that competes with all those out there that you know. Let's not mention people for the sake of free publicity, TGSL. And also the other school, that will be the School of Economics and Management. And the two schools really, as said, sister schools. They do have in common in terms of the programs that they offer, but then it is not for me to talk about the schools at the moment. As I said, let's gather here to ventilate, to discuss, and to be informed about the topic that is very important, the topic that relates to what we call sustainable development goals, in particular, poverty, alleviation, and development. I'd like to extend special thanks to the Vice Chancellor of the University of Limpopo, Professor Mahlomo Halong, in his absence, for his unwavering support, leadership, and also commitment, ensuring that he does support and allow all the relevant sections, divisions at the University of Limpopo to make events like this successful. He's not here today, but I think we need to appreciate his vision and commitment in finding solutions for the African continent and for all humanity in general. In absentia, also allow me to acknowledge and appreciate other members of our university leadership. The registrar, that is the custodians of our programs, custodian of our rules, the person who makes sure that You know, when you come to University of Limpopo, every program, it is not questionable. It's not questions, it's accredited. That is Professor Kwena Masha. The next one being the Deputy Vice Chancellor Teaching and Learning, Professor R.N. Madatse, and the Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, Innovation and Partnerships, emphasizing on partnerships. That is Professor Jay Singh. Their collective efforts have been very instrumental, ensuring that the teaching and learning, community engagement, innovation, and just social justice, it is at the forefront of what we do as the University of Limpopo. But then, allow me further to give a very distinct honor and welcome our esteemed guest speaker, Mr. Phukubye, Executive Director of Mr. Price Foundation. I hope I got it right. And then we are very grateful, Mr. Phukubye, that you took your time, you invested your invaluable time to come to the University of Limpopo and speak to us on exactly what, as communities in the Limpopo province, would like people to come to us and talk about, and nothing else. Innovation, development, taking away poverty from our vicinity. You know, your insights into entrepreneurship, innovation, particularly in the context of rural development, are much anticipated. We're looking forward to your speech. But then also allow me to throw in there that we are also looking forward to potential collaboration and partnerships with brands like Mr. Price. You know, we are giving you a canvas. We are welcoming you. We are giving you a canvas that we are University of Limpopo. There's so much to do for everybody who has our best interest. And I know you do have our best interest. Also, as our former alumni, people should not forget that now you were made here. And also, allow me just to welcome specifically the following individuals without mentioning their portfolios, because they are also in the program. Our moderator, Mr. Lungelo Mtleche, Ms. Nakeng, Moloto Nakeng, Mr. Mpomotsei, Ms. Matsidiso Machebula with the silent H, who will be our panelist. And also, later on, we'll have Professor Mungale thanking us. And also, allow me to say we also do have in our midst Professor Enslin van Rooyen, who is the acting director of TGSL as we speak today. Lastly, can I extend my warmest welcome, words of appreciation to the Master of Development in Planning and Management, the MDEV program, and the Department of Development in Planning and Management, I hope I got it right, for initiating this critical conversation. These are the two departments in the two schools. The first one is here at TGSL, the other one is at SEM. Their efforts demonstrated that the power of education and collaboration is that will drive meaningful change in our societies. And then I can see we have also members of our societies. Our elders are here. I'm not going to, to mention them by name, but then they can see I'm looking at them. We really appreciate that. I think it cannot be easy that you left your time to be here, because then this is also your time. This is also your university. You want to see good things happening. But then this particular opening and welcome, I know, yes, I've got 10 minutes left. I'm kidding, 2 minutes left. It will be incomplete as a welcome and opening if I do not, as Executive Dean of this particular Faculty of Management and Law, welcome you, all of you, and encourage you to consider enrolling in all our programs across the 4 schools. at the University of Limpopo. We've got the School of Law. We've got the School of Accountancy. We are producing the best accountants, African accountants in the continent. Go and check it out. We've got the School of Economics and Management, which is also have human resource division accredited with the People's Board. Not many human resource divisions in the country are accredited with that particular board. We've also have now TGSL, where we are offering our MBA, our MDEV, and our MPAM. Our leaders in the province, really, let's see you coming here and making sure that you are developing this particular baby that you established some many years ago. Thank you very much for being here. Today is going to be a special day. It is a special day. I want you to feel welcome. I'm told that I must say the dogs are on their leashes. I don't want to mutilate Sepedi. So please feel at home. You are all welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Sibanda. Now that we have been welcomed, I can now change to isiZulu. Ngoba sengisekhaya so sengakhuluma the language that I'm more comfortable in. Thank you, Prof. We're now going to move on to the introduction of the host departments, and I'm very much happy that we've taken this route with Dr. Mukwidi, the HOD of DDPM. Because when we conceptualized this public lecture, the idea was, how do we make public lectures impactful? Because in a number of cases, we've had public lectures where the speaker, would really benefit a number of people. And that was because we're working in silos. And I'm very glad that we've established this relationship where we see the impact of actually coming together. We share resources, we share ideas for maximum impact. So I'm going to ask Professor Tanyani Matsibanila to come and introduce the Master of Development in Planning and Management. And I gave him a very clear task that he needs to sell the department because his job depends on it.
Thank you, Program Director. So I won't take much time, but what I will do is that I will just highlight some of the things that we're doing as the program. I think the Dean already mentioned that we have 3 programs in this school. So it's MBA, MPEM, and also MDEV, of which MDEV is what brings us here together with DDPM. I'll just say all protocols observed so that we don't take much time. Maybe just to give a bit of background and also the purpose of MDEV, which is Master of Development in Planning and Management. The idea is to equip students with high-level skills and understanding of different theories, practice, activities which are useful to facilitate holistic and integrated focused development. Some of the common skills that we impart to our students include development facilitation, environmental planning, project design and management, rural and social development, and also research, among other subjects that we touch on. And of course, we integrate our teaching with other disciplines, which include economics, agriculture, human resource management, and statistics, just to mention but few. Some of the career paths which are linked to development planning and management are but not limited to students becoming researchers, development planners, managers, facilitators in areas such as community development and projects and programs, environmental sustainability, rural and urban development, municipal planning, service delivery, and many other aspects which are dealing with development. Students can work within all three spheres of government, national, provincial, and local, international organizations, NGOs, NPOs, and many other private organizations which are dealing with how development can be brought into communities and what is it that we need to do to plan for development. Briefly, I will just outline the modules that we have for MDEV. So we have, on the first semester, we have ethics in development planning and management. We have research methodology. We have statistics for development practitioners. We also have development theories and practice. That is for first semester. Second semester, we have human resource management, project planning and management, regional and local economic development, community development leadership and facilitation, agriculture and rural development, and also environmental management and tourism. So those are the modules that if you are to register with us, you'll be able to do. And of course, the understanding is that the outcome will be that you'll be able to facilitate development in its entirety in different spheres of life. Lastly, I'll just introduce the current staff members that we have within the program. We have our secretary, who's Ms. Maria Kunene. I don't know if she's here. Can you stand so that people can start communicating with you about registering with us? And then we have Mr. Vanel Njoko, our program manager and program director today. He focuses on planning and governance in higher education, governance in local government, public policy implementation, and rural development. The reason why I'm outlining this is for you to know that some of the activities, including research-related projects that you can be thinking about, we do have the people who are capable to supervise you or to work with you on those projects. The second person is me. I focus on issues around climate change, environmental management and disaster management, development policy, entrepreneurship, local economic development, and also issues of service delivery, rural development, and strategic management. We also have Prof. Chris Berman. I don't know if Prof is here. Or Prof is that side. So Prof looks at qualitative research, issues of complexities, resilience, and system thinking, regenerative agriculture and climate variability, and also issues around nexus between soil health, plant, animal, and human health as well. In terms of part-time, we have 2 part-time lecturers currently. We have Ms. Mashudu Mburaeni. I saw her somewhere. Okay, she's sitting there next to Prof. Berman. Her research area focus is agricultural projects, cooperatives, infrastructural projects, small-scale farming, public participation, IDP, and municipal service delivery. And then lastly, we have part-time lecturer, Dr. Wiza Munyega. I have not seen him here, but his focus is around organizational behavior, organizational psychology, change management, and career management, areas with emphasis on work-life balance and also well-being. So this is what we are doing as a program, and you are welcome to communicate with any of us in terms of your intentions to register with us. And also I think we have pamphlets that we'll be distributing after the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Matsibanila, for that. So Mr. Kevin Miso is going to introduce the Department of Planning, Development Planning and Management, which is our our sister department. We are such siblings that our codes are MDV 01 and MDV 02, according to the university's registration. Over to you, Mr. Miso.
Okay, thank you very much, Program Director. Okay, I think firstly I have to acknowledge everyone in our midst and those in absentia in order to ensure that I don't run the risk of being fired, because I can't just come and start talking. Okay, nonetheless, let me acknowledge the Executive Dean in our midst, the Director of the School of Economics and Management, okay, the Program Director, the Director of the TGSL, okay, the team from the Master of Development, Planning and Management from the TGSL, okay, the HOD, Department of Development, Planning and Management, HOD Economics, UL Marketing team, who are taking coverage of what's happening today, guest speakers, distinguished panelists, lecturers, SRC representatives, students, community members in our midst, lecturers, distinguished guests, I greet you all. I am Kevin Miso, as the program indicates, and my role is simple, is basically to tell you about the Department of Development, Planning and Management. Well, the department is headquartered in the University of Limpopo, Teflop campus, under the Faculty of Management and Law, School of Economics and Management. That's where the DDPM is. So we have an undergraduate program, okay. Its duration takes 3 years for completion. We have a postgraduate program, honors, which is 1 year, okay, which means there's a mini dissertation that needs to be completed, plus additional modules, which I'll mention in a few. We also have a master's program. The master's program takes 2 years minimum, and we have a doctoral program. So the master's program is 2 years, and the doctoral program on minimum is 2 years. Right, now, what makes our department relevant? If we look at today's economy, we can see that it is plagued by a variety of challenges. We can mention the triple challenges of poverty. We've seen the unemployment rate, the soaring unemployment rate, which most of our students are worried about, and most academics should be worried about. The rising cost of consumer goods and services, inflation, you know, the multiple challenges that we are facing, poverty, inequality, which places our department perfectly positioned to address these issues, because the manner in which our program is structured, it's structured in a holistic approach to conceptualize and deal with these issues comprehensively. So just to mention a few of the modules that we have under the Department of Development, Planning and Management, and Prof. Matsivandela has mentioned a few that I could sense the similarities between what they offer and what the Department of Development, Planning and Management offers. So we have rural development planning, okay, we have spatial development planning. We approach development also from a local economic development perspective. We have an environmental planning and management perspective, project planning techniques, spatial development planning, just to mention a few. I think for more information, you can download the university on the university website. Okay, there's a flyer, prospectus. It goes into detail into what we do. And I think it would be good for those who might be interested to register, to do so and join us in trying to deal with these multiple issues we are facing as a country. And it even becomes very exciting looking at the title of today's public lecture, which reads The Role of Entrepreneurship and Innovation in Rural Development and Poverty Alleviation. It would be interesting to see and to hear how rural entrepreneurship becomes important and how it would be solved in the new administration of the Government of National Unity. I think students should ask questions. It would be interesting to see, since we have different ministries from different political parties, how certain development agendas, given their distinguished political manifestos, will address such issues of entrepreneurship, because whether we like it or not, politics do affect our development trajectory. So without wasting any time, Program Director, I think I'll leave it there. For more information, I think our colleagues have flyers that they will distribute to everyone, and you'll get more information on that. With those few words, thank you very much, Program Director. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Miso. Colleagues, there is this thing that academics, they write for themselves because no one else reads our work except other academics. And the reason we then host public lectures is so that academics share their knowledge, share their expertise, share their findings with the communities that they claim to be doing this research to improve. And on the other hand also, the reason we do public lectures is to expose our students to field experts, so to supplement what they get from their lecturers in a classroom. It is also important that we bring in people like Mr. Phukubye, and my boss, Prof. Sibanda, will have to forgive me because I'm not used to calling him Mr. Phukubye. It's OP, so I'm going to have to change to that. The reason then we do public lectures is to allow our students to have access to the brilliant minds like OP, to have the brilliant minds like Miloto, to the brilliant minds like Ulungelo, supplementing what they get from their lectures. And also, public lectures, as we can see today, allows us, or close that gap between us and community members, and you find that you've been a lecturer here for years, but there's not a single person from here who knows who you are and what you do. And this is why we should host these type of gatherings. And I'd like to acknowledge our stakeholders and our friends. I should have studied public relations because I'm very good with maintaining relationships. Our friends from the BMF, the colleagues are here. I acknowledge you and thank you for the support. Colleagues from the TVET colleges around, colleagues from the municipalities that Ms. Lerato Moloto, works with closely through our short learning programs. Acknowledge you. Colleagues from TUT, acknowledge you and thank you for the support. And now going to move to asking Dr. Mukwili to come and introduce our guest speaker. Thank you.
The first challenge of speaking just after a short person speaks is that you have to adjust the mic. Okay. That's a challenge. But thank you very much. I have to note before I introduce Mr. Phukubye that we've got 4 programs. We've got doctoral as well, doctoral program. So if you want to come and enroll for Doctor of development, please, we will accept you. And in terms of capacity, we've got one capacitated department, I think, in the school, and surely we're challenging the whole faculty as well. But my duty is simple, but before I do, I would like to welcome as well, to note Mr. Mloisi. We are currently in engagement with them to draw partnerships so that we can create relationships as well. So Mr. Mloisi and your colleagues, thank you very much for gracing us, and other colleagues that are here. Thank you very much. Okay, fine. Let me start with our guest speaker. Octavius, Octavius. Mr. Phukubye is an executive director of Mr. Price Foundation. He has over 16 years of experience in managing and leading strategies and transformation and economic development projects, cutting across consulting and fast-moving consumer goods, banking and mining industry. Prior his role, including managing director in IDF, VAS, VP of supplier development at ABSA or Barclays, economic development manager at South African breweries, and management consultant at Accenture. Mr. Phukubye has worked with several startup accelerators at the Baobab Network, Alpha Code, UCT, IMIN Accelerator as an accelerator manager, venture and capitalist or startup advisor. He is also a former entrepreneur, having founded the Brillinier, sold to IDF Capital and HFI, and led the delivery of adverse impact programs for clients such as Glencore, Shell, Take a Lot, Rent Mutual Assurance. Mr. Phukubye is a Fulbright Humphrey Fellow with the Michigan State University and include VC Fellow. He is also a Mail and Guardian Top 200 Young South Africans of 2014 in the entrepreneur track. He also holds the BCom accounting degree with our university, the University of Limpopo. We can see that we are really doing a good job. And a postgraduate diploma in development finance and master's degree in development finance from the University of Stellenbosch. I welcome you, Mr. Phukubye. Thank you very much.
I'm not sure, I'm not adjusting the mic, eh? So I'm covered. Good morning. Is it morning? Afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I I'm very informal, unlike my previous speakers. So I'm just going to say protocol observed. Kevin was absolutely perfect. So I'm stealing his acknowledgements, and I'm saying Kilaka Leo, right? In that order. I'm from business, so I can use that as an excuse as well. And I must also admit, don't know whether you guys can recognize my student number there. I've got my student number there. Right? So 20 years later, from a student, and today I've got the privilege of delivering a public lecture. Those of you that might be interested, I stated MBA, VF, and MBD. I'm very proud of my University of Limpopo history and where I come from. So it is correct, Executive Dean and the team, that it is this university that has made me. And I carry the flag very proudly, whether I go on and study abroad or study locally. The first introduction is that I'm from University of Limpopo. I'm from Muleji, and I also grew up in Aramulepo. So I'm a Limpopo kid. What's also very emotional today for me is because I've got my family in the audience, and they did not tell me that they were going to come. So I've got my sister. I've got my sister and my brother-in-law, and my niece, my two nieces, and my nephew as well in here in front. And the reason I'm mentioning them is because they were very pivotal in my undergrad. I couldn't have done my early entry into University of Limpopo without their support. In fact, to a large extent, I even took some of their the child grant that one of my nieces used to get in 2004 for her daughters to catch a taxi and a bus to the campus. So it's very emotional to me today, but that's my story, and I can't erase it, and it's who I am, right? My sister being here, she was there at my graduation. I think she was, her and my mother were the first two people that knew where I was for the first year. Most people did not know that I was actually at university, because when you are, from rural areas, you have to be very careful about what, your whereabouts. Don't just tell people whereabouts. Next thing you can't complete your undergrad. And, because when you are at the T block now, you can't see the script, the question mark, can't see anything. And when the results are released, I think we were a B block. Our results used to be released at B block. I don't know whether they're still being released at B block. Next thing you can't even see your student number there. So I'm sharing with you the stories because there's a relationship to what I'm about to talk to you today. I can go on about my history, but I grew up very poor, come from a poor household. For first year of the university, second year of the university, we're getting free meals from the university. I don't know whether that program is still there. At N Block, the nutrition, Department of Nutrition, we're getting free meals. I don't know whether that program is still there. Over weekend, on Friday, they'll give us a loaf of bread and a peanut butter. And this is 20 years ago. But that's the landscape and the upbringing that one has. But please do remember, that context, because I want to connect it to what I want to share with you today. And thanks for the opportunity once again. Thank you, Banele. He's been hounding me from the time before he even joined the University of Limpopo, when he was still in Germany, for me to come and present on a subject that I very much obsess about and I'm passionate about. And it's my day-to-day bread and butter, which is entrepreneurship and innovation. And although when they said public lecture, in my head, I imagined an actual lecture because I've been a student, so I'm thinking, okay, so I need a board, I need a marker, I need a chalkboard because I want to take students through, certain elements of what I want to discuss and not a speech. So brace yourself. My presentation today is from my experiences. It's not entirely a speech. So I'll share with you my experiences, my ideas and arguments, and I'm hoping that it will be a platform for us to engage, discuss, debate, and counter each other's perspectives, all with the purpose of getting better and improving our view of how we can solution the problems that Kevin was illustrating that exist in our communities, right? Because my struggle background and others that have got a similar stories, that it shouldn't be the norm. That shouldn't be the norm. It shouldn't be something that we necessarily proud ourselves with, because for the next generation, that shouldn't be their launch pad. That shouldn't be their experiences. 30 years ago, if I may start, I've got 40 minutes now left. 30 years ago, my mother, I'm going to say my mother, even though my sister's in the house, but she's my mother, it's not our mother. So I'm going to say my mother. She can say her mother, but it's my mother, right? So 30 years ago, my mother used to brew craft beer, right? Informally though, in a village called Chibing in Maleji. There's two different types of beers that she used to brew with pineapple and watermelon. She used to brew beer with those two things, those two ingredients, and sell them. The reason I'm mentioning it again is because at the time it did not occur to me, and the older I got, I realized, this was very innovative. Because there was no manual on how to make beer with pineapple. I don't know if any of you guys have had a pineapple beer, right? I don't know how many of you guys have had a watermelon beer. Say what? During COVID, everybody was making up a lot of things, eh? I also made a Nando sauce during COVID. But right there and then, I think, in all these rural settings, there's a lot of innovation that is taking place, informally so. But as we proceed to engage at this level, we seem to think that innovation is only located in the laboratories, in the fancy laboratories of institutions, right? Commercializing those opportunities only exists when we talk about technology, for example, much more complicated things, whereas these innovations exist well within our rural settings. How did she commercialize it? She commercialized it through selling as a shebeen. Our home used to be a mini shebeen, right? So the element and essence of the commercialization existed, but maybe we didn't have the terminology to contextualize it. We didn't have the mechanisms to formulate it and expand and grow it, right? And accelerate or scale it. But the absence of it is not a question. It was there. So that's really the message I want to drive today, to this question around how can innovation and entrepreneurship transform our lives in the rural settings. But before we can expand and go deeper into that perspective, I want us to have a standard appreciation of what realities we're dealing with, and characteristics of what we're dealing with. What is the baseline from which we're wishing to argue this and extend some of these proposals? The makeup of our landscape is one that is primarily very poor. It's primarily very poor. It's primarily dependent on social grants. Very much dependent on government support. But if we zoom into Limpopo as a case study, I think we're finding that there aren't many sources of income that exist amongst our communities as options. So you can either go and get a job. This job is, number one, either created by government or institution of government. Secondly, private sector, but this private sector is primarily very retail, and we don't have a lot of industrialization that happens. And then the huge chunk of what we depend on is social grants. So that gives you an idea of the landscape we're dealing with. Over 40 people out of 100 are experiencing poverty in various formats, in various forms, in various shapes. If we zoom into Limpopo, of course, it varies when you consider Northwest, Eastern Cape, and every other province will have its own profile. in these communities that we're dealing with in the rural settings, people are more interested in making sure that their basic needs are met, right? As a fundamental human objective, the basic needs are met. You're also dealing with a number of social cultural issues, the dynamics that exist in there. You've got mahoshi, you've got councillors, you have a lot of informality that exists in there. You've got low levels of empowerment of women, black women in majority, and these are people that hold over 90% of households in the rural areas that the households rely on, right? And that's the shape and form of what landscape you're dealing with. Most of it is more consumer driven. We don't see a lot of industrial and productive economy happening. It's mostly very consumer based. In terms of the population size, you find that these communities that are in these rural areas, bulk of these communities that are skilled, have got high skill, large competencies or capabilities, have either migrated to the next town or have completely migrated out of the province. I'm a case in point. I live in Durban, right? But why is that? It's because people are looking for economic opportunities. Why are people looking for economic opportunities? Because people want better lives for themselves. At the end of the day, people just want to put food on the table. People want to eat today. They don't want to eat tomorrow, right? So that's the context under which I want us to think about when we overlay the concept of innovation and entrepreneurship, and to what extent are we able to spread it and stretch it and deepen it in that ecosystem. Because it's not going to be as simple as thinking of innovation and entrepreneurship when you are in, for example, Tefluop or a Cape Town or a Soweto or a Hatfield or a Braamfontein. Does that make sense? So there's variables there that we have to think about. I wanted to zoom into this as well because I think it's a factor I'd like to position as something related to our ability to see innovation and entrepreneurship, making an impact in our communities. Is we're losing talent. The long story short is we're losing talent. This is the talent that we need to give us a pipeline of innovative solutions. This is the talent we need to give us a pipeline of ventures that we could convert into sustainable businesses that create jobs. This talent is moving, and we are supplying this talent to Gauteng and the world. This talent we're supplying because there aren't enough opportunities available immediately to them where we live. And that I want us to pause and think. So immediately when we ask ourselves, what is the role of innovation and entrepreneurship? How do we then address that question when even the talent is not sufficiently retained where we are? We're not keeping the talent long enough. Most of us in here will get our undergrad and do look for opportunities, most probably in Gauteng. Secondly, if we get opportunity, internship or jobs here, we'll stay. But at the first chance to move to Johannesburg or Pretoria, we will do so. And the cycle continues. The cycle continues. That's not even enough. While that is happening, right, we're dealing with chronic unemployment levels. This result was just released yesterday, but that's the same. So more and more people are becoming unemployed. More and more people are becoming inactive. In fact, they've lost hope. They've given up. They've given up, the option of looking for a job or even creating a job within their own means. That number is growing. I'm not trying to shock you. I'm not trying to depress you. My attempt is to lay the ground so that when we start thinking about those two concepts of entrepreneurship and innovation, we understand the gravity from which we are moving from, that there's going to be heavy lifting that is required, both from universities, civil society, business, government, as well as students and academics at large. there's going to be heavy lifting, especially for a province like Limpopo. But let me make this argument from the onset. My argument is that without a vibrant small business activity and a culture of entrepreneurship, there's absolutely no hope of changing that landscape I've just talked about. There's no hope, none whatsoever. That's my argument. Every other pillar can exist within our ecosystem, but without these two elements, it will be perpetual. We'll come here 20 years later, one of the people who are sitting in this room will come back, give another lecture in 30 years, and lament about these things. So I argue that until we can appreciate the power of small business and the culture of entrepreneurship, we really have no hope in addressing rural development, improving rural development, and solving the challenge of poverty alleviation. Why? Because small businesses, people have said small businesses are the backbone of the economy. I don't think small businesses are the backbone of the economy. It almost feels like an oxymoron, because if small businesses are the backbone, it doesn't feel like they're the backbone, because they don't run the show, they don't control everything. They don't influence policy, governance, legislation, resources, allocation of means of production, right? They're still pretty much very vulnerable. But they are the oxygen. I think if we start to think of them as the oxygen, we start to think and change the mindset. Because without the oxygen, we can die. But without the backbone, we can still manage to move. Although, begrudgingly, but without oxygen, we can't. And I think this is the change in the perspective in how we start imagining policy, how we start imagining laws, how we start imagining programs, investments. That if we don't ensure that we address this or service this, the oxygen will close and the system will shut down. So let's get into the details and talk about innovation. I'm talking about innovation because innovation is a feeder into entrepreneurship. We want to see ideas emerge from this group. We want to see ideas being supported and being launched so that we create jobs, we create options, we create pathways for people so that people can have options. The power is when people have got options. I either go and work for a large company, either go work for a government, either go for an emerging small business that can afford to pay for my talent and skill and knowledge and education. And I think that's where we want to go. If we accept that innovation is really the process of making improvements, adding value, creating impact, if we agree, I think therefore it goes without saying that this element of innovation, it's intrinsically embedded in our rural setting. Can we make that argument? I'm happy if anyone has got a violent objection to my view. We can discuss this later on in the Q&A session. But I argue that innovation as it sits, as we agree on the definition, is embedded in our ways of life. The only difference could be in the size and the complexity of how this innovation comes across. Perhaps in our rural settings, this innovation element is so minimalistic or so informal. But what is the beauty of innovation if it's not simple in how it transforms our lives? And I think we've done that. I think we do that on almost every other day. We live in rural areas where every other day we come up with solutions for the problems that we encounter, and I think for me that constitutes innovation. The challenge is the inability to commercialize these innovations. Let me make an example. During the summer crop, once we are done with the summer crop, we're entering into winter. And this is going to sound so pedestrian and so basic, but it is absolutely true. After the summer crop, we sun dry excess produce. Do we not? Now think about it. Do we not sun-dry excess produce? Have we not sun-dried morogo, tepe, leroto? Do we not do that? We do. And we do that to preserve the food, to preserve the nutritional value of the food. In fact, on the upside, it increases because of the concentration. But that's besides the point. But we do that. That is a practice we have in our rural settings. It's not a new invention. But how much of that? Today, we sit, it is what? It is August. I don't know if anyone has got access to leroto, morogo. Does anyone have access to it? Does anyone have access to tepe? No, because it's seasonal. But those that used to sun-dry it would have supply to this day. Now, imagine next day you go into Woolworths and you find it packaged and sold to you just in the equivalent of your biltong. Only then would it occur in our minds that, hey, Marija all the time. Why no one ever thought about, putting it into a package and selling it throughout, because there's excess of it during the month of November, December, and January. But have we done it? We've not. Is there a reason why we've not done it? No one can extend a justifiable excuse or a reason. Why haven't we put it into a tin? Because there is consumption of the produce. We do consume it. We've only managed to commercialize it to an extent of the informal markets. So for those that, I don't know whether the pension, the social grants, they still have a payday where they go to a village and they spend a whole day. But and also informal markets, if you go to town, you still find this kind of produce in buckets. But the point I'm making is that we have innovation, but it's driven by need and survival, and we are not tapping enough into the commercial viability of scaling some of these opportunities. And it is apparent that it is right in front of us. So we can't talk about innovation in the rural settings when the fundamentals are being missed right in front of our eyes. And it is up to this entire community to start imagining ways in which we could do that. It would be a sad day in our history, or especially in Limpopo, if somebody from elsewhere comes to this province and does these. And then we become consumers. I can go on. Another example is Mpesu. I know you laugh. But if you go and check the total value of nutritional supplements market value and how much that product could do, if packaged properly, researched, put into appealing packages, bottles, etc., and distributed through, whether it is Discam, whatever, building out proper, industrial setups in Limpopo to feed the market, because you can only get, I think, only from here. I think that plant. But are we doing it? We're not doing it. It's a mystery why we're not doing it. So the failure, why we're not doing it, really sits in our innovation management systems. We have to improve our practices and our management of innovation. The way we have to manage innovation, we have to improve it. But there are challenges on how we can improve this management of innovation. Locally, we don't have enough of what I call railways or pathways of innovation. So when you develop an innovative idea, so perhaps my argument of these examples is sufficient, but somebody could come back and say, well, if I actually wanted to pursue that, where do I go? Where's the first port of call? Yes, I want to mass produce Mpesu, package it properly, make sure that the ingredients are tested, everything else, and we're shipping it out. We go and negotiate with the Discam for a contract to supply their stores. Where do I go? Where do I even get the machinery to mass produce this? Where do I even get the capital to be able to do this? But the role players in the ecosystem still lack in the management of innovation and the practices. That's what we have to improve on and what we have to work on. Those are the challenges that we are facing. There's not enough human capacity and competence across the entire social network capital. So the different role players that exist in our rural settings and our ecosystem, there's not enough capacity, knowledge, knowing how to manage these things. So now imagine you are in a rural area or in a township and you have this innovation. The first person you go to, it's likely to be who? There's no office there, there's no information office, there's not anybody in there that can give you advice on how to put together a concept note, how to put together a proposal, on how to put together a commercialization strategy, on how to do a market research on this specific health product. There just isn't not enough human capacity for it. Added to that, not enough infrastructure available for us to incubate and add value, primarily on the indigenous knowledge systems that exist, but also other forms of innovation, including technology. We just do not have a sufficient amount of infrastructure that is accessible for anyone else with an idea to add value and commercialize it. Lastly, like I said, the knowledge of managing innovation as a phenomenon needs to be invested in and improved on. Because if we don't know how to manage it, it will pass us. It will pass us. It will continue to pass us. And we will miss opportunities as a consequence. Who are the role players that could make an impact in this entire ecosystem of innovation as new ideas emerge from the rural areas, from our communities? Who are the different role players that I believe have got a say or a role that they could start imagining in their participation? I start with the tribal authorities. I was talking to a professor who used to be my classmate in 2004 in the Business Management 101 that was taught by Mr. Skel. I don't know if father is still alive. If he's still teaching. That's what I meant, not alive. If he's still teaching. If he's still teaching, sorry. If he's still teaching. I think we have to start imagining and putting pressure and reconsidering the mandate of tribal authorities under this concept of innovation. I believe if we can adequately resource this role player, this number one role player, I think we have a chance to drive and manage the commercialization of ideas. It sounds like a far-fetched idea because you can't imagine a Hoshi or a Nduna having the capacity and the competency to comprehend, how to manage innovative idea that may come from a young person or an old person in their village or in their community. But it's something I argue that we must contend with. We must start thinking about, however far-fetched or uncomfortable as it may be. You also have local government councillors through the LEDs, local economic development budgets, and what have you. One of the things that I believe are missed opportunities in there is expanding the scope of councillors. Again, here it gravitates and goes in the peripheries of what their mandate is and what governance requires or government requires of their role. But I think if we appreciate their existence, whether Kevin, we are in a GNU or not, councillors will be in the communities to take comments, to take feedback, to take issues of the communities. And I think in the category of all issues that they take from the communities, we must make space, we must create space in there for them to have the competence and the capacity to deal with any idea that may come from any young person and old person. They are a key role player, and we don't want to remove them from that ecosystem. And a new idea that I believe has been missing in our ecosystem for long, and when you compare it to Portugal, Nigeria, Kenya, Japan, USA, Michigan, and there's another country that India, is we've got leader at a provincial level. What we ought to start thinking about is how do we do micro levels of economic development agencies. I'll say that again. So you've got a leader at a provincial level with offices at various districts. But it is at a hyper-localized level. So take a hyper-localized level like, so think Ramatlala, think Giyani, think Muleji, think Ramalepo. At those micro levels in Sekhukhune, what are the economic development agencies that are available with the mandate to support these kind of things? I believe that we can have those, in the format, in the structure of NGOs and whatnot. I think that we have an opportunity to create pathways at a localized level and a more accessible level. Finally, on the question of innovation, I think if we harp on the informality, which should make us uncomfortable, that we have left the management of innovation to the informal factors of our economic realities. It must make us uncomfortable because it is that informality that robs us 9 out of 10 times of opportunity to see ideas emerge that we can grow and launch and scale into actual ventures and businesses. Some of the factors that we may want to think about around innovation, and maybe before I even touch on these, is to give you a high level of different types of innovations which people tend to misconstrue, right? So you've got in the rural context, what you are finding, you're going to find mostly your incremental innovation. Very small scale levels of improving what currently exists, and nothing that is going to be incredibly disruptive, right? And that's okay, but you have to build out a pathway towards getting more disruptive ideas. And roles such as, institutions such as universities are critical. Institutions such as, government are critical in order for us to create those levels for this type of innovation. And I think we should make an acceptance what type of innovation may come, and maybe outliers and exceptions may occur, but in the main, we are going to find these kinds of innovations that are coming there. Very little that may come from radical. There is a way in which I talk to around entrepreneurship on how to play disruptive and radical in the context of entrepreneurship. But let me close out on this innovation. You have to think around how you can create hubs around, in the rural areas. Most of the hubs doesn't have to be physical. This is the other challenge. People tend to think they have to be physical institutions or physical houses or offices that are hubs. It can actually take an ecosystem or a virtual approach on how you can embed that. Like I said, if you understand the different role players, you can start imagining how a hub can exist. So think of an area, a micro area, and start knowing who are the different role players, who are the different resources and mechanisms. And one of the factors that you want to start including is to say, is there availability of finance or funding that will allow the commercialization, even if it is at a marginal level of these ideas. An idea I want to extend around funding, which I also reiterate on the entrepreneurship element, is the presence of stokvels. The presence of stokvels. Different types of funding exists in our communities, but in rural areas, you will 10 out of 10 times find a stokvel that is saving money. It's a group of people. 90% of the time, it's women collecting money on a regular basis to address their needs. And those needs, 60% of the time, are mostly grocery and funeral expenses. This is based on research. And almost every other year, there's about 4 billion worth of stokvel money that is being saved by different forms of groupings. Have we tapped enough in that? We haven't, because not enough capacity and knowledge exists to figure out ways and methods to create pathways to tap into the stokvel grouping or stokvel funding in there. And this is what I illustrate in the culture and the network. You've got to form that culture through the groupings that exist in the ecosystem. Like I said, in the infrastructure, it lacks human capital. You want it. Markets are important. There is no point in thinking about innovation if we have not imagined where are we going to sell or grow this idea? Who's going to consume this idea? Who are the users of this idea? Who are the beneficiaries of this improvement that we're making? And again, move back to some of the case studies I've mentioned around the simple products that exist in our communities. Few proposals, I think, like I said, if we build enough pipeline of practitioners and agents on the grounds, we have a better chance of starting the process of building railways, pathways of innovation. If we start to set up local NGOs as micro-local economic development agencies, that way we start to have people who we can capacitate and act to discharge practices of managing some of these ideas that can come in the rural areas. If universities continue to use communities as living labs and commission research that is more focused around how do we practicalize these things, how do we institutionalize these things, how do we move away from synthesizing information data to actual programs that can drive tangible impact in our communities, I think we will be moving somewhere, we'll be moving forward. Around entrepreneurship, how much time do I have? I want to close out on the entrepreneurship. Okay, cool. Entrepreneurship is another element that I wanted to discuss and share my thoughts on around how it can make an impact in our societies. But once again, even on an entrepreneurship level, do we have a same understanding of what are considered to be categories of different types of entrepreneurship? Because it's entrepreneurship that is going to boost our economic growth. But do we understand different types of entrepreneurship that may or can or should exist in our rural settings? Because entrepreneurship thrives differently if you are in Teflop, if you are in Polokwane, if you are in Seshego, if you are in a rural area in Vembe. It thrives differently. What makes it thrive differently? So I share here that two other forms of entrepreneurship are likely to be the ones that thrive more predominantly in rural areas. And if we accept, it becomes an easier departure point for us to begin thinking of solutions that can address these opportunities. So small business entrepreneurship is what is primarily exists in the rural areas. And in these rural areas, what do small businesses in there mean? You've got micro businesses, you've got small businesses, and you've got emerging businesses. The type of businesses and the profile of businesses that you have is mostly retail businesses, right? It's mostly predominantly retail. What you have is your micro businesses who, by research done by United Nations and IFC, is at best they will employ themselves and their next of kin. So at maximum capacity, these small businesses or micro businesses will create 2 to 3 jobs and nothing more. That's what we will have in our ecosystem in the rural settings. That's okay. Most of those businesses are leveraging their artisanal skills, and it's also very subsistence driven. Those are the businesses that we should have in the ecosystem, but they're not enough, because we need businesses that can create more jobs and absorb more labor, so that people don't rush to Joburg looking for opportunities. People don't leave rural areas coming to Polokwane and then jam-pack the system, whether in utilities, water, electricity, etc. There's also an emerging form of entrepreneurship that is something we should embrace, social entrepreneurship, which is driven primarily in solving community needs and community challenges. And there are forms of support mechanisms that are unique to more your commercial driven businesses. And these are opportunities that we've got to start thinking how we support them, how we fund them. It's a taboo for most people who are running social enterprises to go and look for funding. An example of a social enterprise is a young person who studied B.Ed at the University of Limpopo and now they've struggled to find the right type of a job. They want to start an ECD. So they want to start an ECD in the village because a lot of kids are not getting the right type of support. They're not enough crutches, and that is a social enterprise. But do we have enough funding, enough support, enough resources to help them succeed as well in there? And I don't think we do. So we have missed opportunities in all of these, right? The missed opportunities that we have is that on the in your early stage, this type of companies that we have that are very much one to two, 1 to 3 people, is we've not prioritized women. We have to start thinking how we prioritize women because of the following reasons. They are predominantly the ones that are running the households in the rural areas. 2, when it comes to financing, that the best repayer of loans than men. So you can trust women than you can trust men with your money. That is research, it's not me. It's not me. They are also the anchors of social capital. They're the anchors of social capital. If you remove women from the fiber of the society, they run everything, whether it is funerals, whether it's weddings, whether it is completely end to end. So if there's anything, any chance you have, if you have R1 million available to invest prioritizing women, more so young black women, because those are the groups that are mostly vulnerable. But you're not doing it because they are necessarily vulnerable or they've got a higher disadvantage when it comes to income disparities, because they service the loans better. They mean business. When they are doing it, they are running the business. So you can trust that they will, run some of these opportunities in the localities. I think one of the other missed opportunities that we really have to do better on is, and especially as Limpopo, we consider ourselves the Eden of Africa, but we have completely missed so many waves of industrializing our produce from an agricultural perspective. We've missed so many waves. In I think 3-4 years ago, Tiger Brands launched their VC fund, their corporate VC, so the venture capital, which is going to finance new products, new ideas in their full product selection. So here, I think Tiger Brands, they make, I can't remember whether it's wheat bix, so this kind of products, their yogurts, etc., etc. Most of the ingredients are primarily coming from us because we make the vegetables, we make the fruits, etc., etc. But we've not commercialized the production of new opportunities from this natural resources that we have. And I think if we can invest in capturing value in product innovation, I think we have a chance. There's enough consumption in our own economy in Limpopo. Firstly, we could just produce product and supply this local market before we even ship it anywhere else. So I once visited a farm, the biggest carrot farm in Africa, called Rugani in Talton in Western area. Biggest farm of carrots. 90% of carrots you find in the shops, it comes from that farm. They're now making juice blends of carrots. And the target market is those that are nutritional, obsessed. You drink these things to detox. You drink these things to go to gym, after gym, etc., etc. But we've not thought about how we can take advantage of the oversupply of the agricultural produce we have to make products that we can commercialize. And this commercialization, again, I want to simplify. Leaders got a mandate to also co-own in some of the businesses that we can emerge from here. And I saw in the last report we've got there's a new business in insurance. And I don't think we've got enough businesses on the product side that is co-owned by government and other entrepreneurs from locally. And very quickly, we have to make different types of capital available and accessible. Forms of capital. So you've got banking sector, you've got NYDA that can give grants, you've got LEADER that can give loans, but there's another level of financing that is missing in where we are as a province. And I hope with this new government in place, Kevin, and Banele, they will start imagining how we can formulate what, South Africa is terrible with microfinance institutions. We really do not have microfinance institutions. You've got your established banks, and without the established banks, if you remove the DFIs, so LEADER would constitute a DFI, a development finance institution, your CFA, development finance institutions, NEF, development finance institutions. If you remove those from the ecosystem of funding, you're left with nothing. And for most of us who are first generation entrepreneurs or coming from poor communities, we don't have rich uncles to give us the early capital to launch our businesses. So create ways in which, and I think other provinces are starting to imagine provincial banks. Itala Bank in KZN is there. I think Gauteng is advancing their talks to establish their own bank. And I think it's also extending the idea of a bank, but creating more accessible forms of microfinance solutions to communities. So as opposed to a bank that is only going to be accessible to a few, have it more accessible. The closest we had as a province was VBS. We know what happened there. And then lastly, some few points I want to put forward in how we embed entrepreneurship in our localities to drive economic growth is we have to invest in education. Entrepreneurship education. A lot of people don't know education, don't know about entrepreneurship, how to manage it, how to program, to put programmatic interventions around entrepreneurship, how to support young entrepreneurs and old entrepreneurs. I've spoken about micro finance institutions. When you foster early entrepreneurship education, you create a platform for early activity. You want students to start starting businesses early enough. The more they fail, the better chance, probability of success later on in their lives. So whatever we're doing in the TVETs, whatever we're doing in the university is great. What we need to start going down to at a localized level, whether schools, through competitions, through programs, whether through churches. I've also argued that that community that exists within our rural settings, are we tapping into that power? If we create these social networks of practitioners on innovation and entrepreneurship, I believe that we have a better chance of really, introducing systems that can transform our local settings. So, with that, my hope is that we live here with the understanding, at least, that one, entrepreneurship can't exist in isolation. It's not an animal, it's not a mystical animal. It must be supported with various interventions in our ecosystem. Innovation, we have to build enough practices and knowledge capacity in order for the rails to start forming. We have to tap into the different role players, those that exist, without introducing new forms of role players. Tap into the ones that exist and rearrange or reconfigure their mandates. And that way, for us, I think we have a better chance of seeing how innovation and entrepreneurship transforming the lives of people in the rural areas. Let me stop there before Banele chases me off the stage. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you. I think he deserves more than that round of applause. Mr. Sekela responded on the virtual platform that is very much alive and still teaching. And that's the beauty of this hybrid hybrid gatherings, because you'll never know who you're accusing of something, and they're there and they're listening. Thank you, OP. It's been, for me, we share a background of being kids, brought up in rurals of this country, and we always, for lack of a better word, it annoyed me how we benefit everyone else except the provinces we come from, except the rural areas we come from. So that's why I was hounding him so much that you need to come back to the University of Limpopo and give whatever, as we have a platform, let's find a way for you to share, your ideas. Let's find a way for you to share your knowledge and expertise with your home province. And I'm so happy that today we managed to do that. Just again, the significance and how important this day has been. It is actually OP's 6th wedding anniversary to the beautiful Morongwa today. And in our panelist, it is also Mrs. Matebula's birthday today. So you see, people have taken time out from very important events to be here today. And again, we have parents of my friend Muloto also here today, as part of our audience. So a lot of people have really cancelled their day to be here today. Now we're going to move to the second part of our event, which is the panel discussion, where the brilliant minds will now be dissecting what OP presented, and then after that, we're then going to engage the audience. And I hope our students have prepared the questions, because the minds beyond their lecturers are here. So I'm going to ask Professor Van Rooyen, who is the program manager for the Master of Public Administration and Management, and today wearing the hat of our acting director, to introduce the moderator for the panel discussion. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Mr. Njoko. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I believe by this time you've been welcomed over and over and again, so suffice for me to say welcome. Mine is to, just this afternoon, to just introduce to you the panelist, of course, and the moderator in particular. And I would like to say that if you listen closely, you will realize that this moderator that we have selected this afternoon, the person really knows what he's doing, and the person has direction in life, and the person has really made inroads into various sectors already. Allow me to share some with you. So Mr. Lungelo Mdletshe, he is, or was announced or awarded being the Mail and Guardian Top 200 Young South African Award recipient for 2024. Now that in itself is something I think really worth noticing. And I really would want you to take a moment and give him a hand, because this is no mean feat. Yes. Yes, this is an achievement by and in itself. Now Lungelo, as he is commonly known, is a registered professional engineer with the Engineering Council of South Africa. So the gentleman actually has a lot of knowledge as far as the engineering and materials part of the work is concerned. His alma mater is the UKZN, and he graduated, of course, with a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering. Now, his studies actually continued after that, where he completed a postgraduate diploma, also at UKZN, in business and leadership, where he did a diploma in business management and a master after that of commerce in leadership studies. Now, in addition to that, something noteworthy is that he has a big impact in the social media space, where he has built an award-winning growth and wellness podcast. And this podcast is entitled or called Engineer Your Life. And that's why I actually made the point earlier of stressing that he is an engineer, and the name of this podcast is quite fitting, isn't it? Okay, Engineer Your Life, something to take note. Now, listen to this. You know the way it goes with podcasts and YouTube and so on, it has to do with how many hits and subscriptions and so forth. Now, only for YouTube, he has amassed in excess of 4 million, I repeat, views. And this is really something worth noticing. And I want to end by sharing with you in the final instance Lungelo's mantra in life, and I quote, "Anything of value takes time." I think this is wonderful. Thank you very much. Right. So in addition to that, of course, the panelists would be Professor Madzivanzila, Ms. Nakeng, Ms. Motsei, and Mrs. Matebula. And with that, ladies and I'm so sorry. And yes, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite you to the front here to have the soft seats, and then, of course, you're going to ask the hard questions. Thank you. Please join us in front here.
Wonderful introduction of myself. It is really appreciated. We don't realize how much we have done and what we do until somebody else gets a platform, especially a public platform like this, to just acknowledge what you've done. So I really appreciate it, and I'm truly humbled. I'm a young boy turning 13 in 2 weeks from Umlazi, KwaZulu-Natal. So to be here because of everything we've done and what we've been able to accomplish is truly a privilege. And I'd like to thank you for giving us this attention and your time here today. I'm Lungelo Mdletshe, others know me as Lungelo KM, host of Engineer Your Life. Big platform on YouTube about growth and wellness. So yeah, just check it out when you get a chance. Today I'm not alone. We will be analyzing at depth, and you guys will be the fly on the wall about this great public lecture that OP gave us. And these brilliant minds who are panelists, some are people in business, corporate, some are academics, will be giving us some insight into the different aspects of what the public lecture was about. Perhaps they will be able to discuss things that you were questioning as the conversation was going on, and they will be able to bring also some clarity on the areas that you have questions on. It's important that we acknowledge that we are a very diverse room. We come from different backgrounds, so this panel, we tried our best for it to be of diverse people who have diverse areas of expertise. So I'd just like to briefly introduce my panel. We've got Prof. Matsibandila, who's based here at TGSL at the University of Limpopo. His research areas of interest are environmental management, climate change, development policy, entrepreneurship, and disaster management. His achievements briefly, he's a former member of the Academy of Science of South Africa on the Forum of Just Transition. He served as a chairperson for the NRF Tutuga Research Program in the peer review panel, and he's participated in the Department of Higher Education and Training Future Professors Program, Phase 2, Cohort 1, and listen to this, he's published over 40 peer-reviewed accredited articles and book chapter. I think that deserves a round of applause. Mrs. Matsidiso Matsebula, the lady lovely in pink, is a lecturer at the University of Limpopo in the School of Economics and Management under the Department of Development Planning and Management. She joined academia in the year 2012, 12 years ago, as a junior lecturer, and was later promoted in 2015. From 2015 to 2023, she was mainly involved in management activities, where she was appointed as the head of department and later acting director of the School of Economics and Management. As of April 2023, she then rejoined academics as a lecturer to pursue a PhD qualification. Her area of expertise is in local economic development, urban development, and change management. I think that also deserves a round of applause. Remember, I promised you diversity. So we've got Moloto Nakeng, who is in industry. She's only 27 years old, turning 28 soon. She's a director of Kamujo Trading and Projects, which have a niche of being a bulk logistics provider with various other business interests, ranging from mining and construction, founded 9 years ago. She's 27, remember that. She's dedicated to the growth of young people. Yeah, that's a round of applause, sure. She's dedicated to the growth of young people and demonstrates good leadership qualities. Nakeng is an enthusiastic business executive who excels in management, business and marketing, driven by the love of innovation, creativity, and growth to pursue her purpose as an entrepreneur. She seeks to empower not only herself, but others by creating jobs and living a life that prioritizes social entrepreneurship upliftment, because she has an ingrained belief that entrepreneurship is a chance to provide values through community and service. I think that deserves a round of applause. And last but not least, Mr. Motsei Mpo is the founder and managing director of Wellness Metrics Pty Limited. He's also the current chairperson of Black Management Forum Limpopo, an important forum for this entity and this type of setting that we're in. He's also an entrepreneur with an experience spanning over 12 years with interests in employee health and wellness, construction like Limpopo, investment and community facilitation. He serves on several boards as both a non-executive and executive director. He holds several qualifications, including a Master's of Public Management in the University of Venda and another Master's in Business Administrations here from TGSL. He's currently studying towards a qualification in Investments Management with the University of Cape Town. I think let's give him a round of applause. Mr. Motsei, since I'm already talking to you and about you right now, I'll get straight into it and talk to you. I'd like for you, in your area of expertise, to just respond to what OP discussed today and perhaps raise a few questions to him regarding his lecture.
No, thank you very much for this opportunity. I think let me take this opportunity to thank this opportunity that we've been given. we are not a stranger as the BMF in the TGSL. I studied here, and we're really thankful for being part of this. But also our members are here for Black Management Forum. They are also here, and I would like to say thank you very much for supporting this. But look, I think on the, just to dive straight on what you call him OP, right? He's our former member. For those who are not aware, there is one thing that he has mentioned, and he's mentioned a lot of things about issues related to innovation and entrepreneurship. But there's something that speaks to us, especially as the BMF. He spoke about the issue of education and issues related to lack of skill, right? Especially when it comes to entrepreneurs. Now, where we're sitting as the BMF, we've got that aspect of saying we are a professional organization. That's number one. So the issue about us is to say you cannot be able to build entrepreneurship or businesses or small businesses that do not, maybe let me just allow
30 seconds for the machine to go down.
Yeah, so I think what we want to say is to say our main aim as the Black Management Forum is to make sure that, now I feel somebody is jealous here. Okay.
I think he's having fun.
Now I can see. Maybe he's one of those people that OP has spoken about, that you don't have to tell people you are coming to the university. Maybe he's one of those people. So yeah, I think what is important to us, especially as the Black Management Forum, is the aspect that, just a quick one, is to say you cannot be able to have a very sustainable entrepreneurship or an entrepreneur that runs a very professional business that doesn't have proper governance. So we know that innovation, like he has mentioned, has always been there. And we've got local businesses in the rural areas. But most of those businesses, they die when people die. And they don't become sustainable enough that they can be able to even employ further than that. So but where we are, which is something that is mentioned as part of the barriers, which is on statistics, is to say, as the Black Management Forum, we have got that thing to say. We need to be able to partner with universities like this to go and impart with the entrepreneurs to say they need to have proper skills as to how to run their businesses, but moreover is to also have governance structures after that, so that the business should not depend on one person, that they take the money that they're having and that they are making and they go and they swap the Gucci's and the other stuff. So basically what we're simply saying is to say the people need to be able to respect the business money and be able to separate it. And in rural areas, it's very difficult for people to do that, especially small businesses. They need education. They need proper governance structures that will be able to run their businesses to become very sustainable. Thank you.
Just a quick one in response to you. How do I get this education? For example, we have this forum where we're here in partnership with the different colleges and every different institution in society. Yep. Where do I get this education specifically? I want a practical solution. Where do I get this education?
Look, the number one is professional bodies, right? You get it from number one is professional bodies. Number two is institutions like this to go to communities. We have mentioned, Mr. Njogo has mentioned something like that, to say it is now time that professors must not write papers to themselves. It's now time we are bringing these people here from the communities to be able to learn about what is happening, what are you writing about. So that is the second platform that will be able to assist in terms of to make it practical, to say the university now needs to go out there to make sure that all those businesses, small businesses, can be able to get the proper training, partner with professional bodies that are outside the university. That is where we have the database of those entrepreneurs that we can be able to partner with them and practically create a workshop for them, and they come and workshop them. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Matsebula, your response to that lovely lecture?
First, I want to greet everyone again Madumea Fairly. Yes. What I found intriguing from the presentation we got today from Octavius is in relation to issues relating to managing innovation in our communities, more especially rural communities. But the one thing that struck out for me was how do communities, rural communities especially, manage innovation when, one, they cannot recognize it, which is why upscaling becomes a challenge. And another thing is that there is lack of education in that regard. I am in higher education, and something that's close to my heart is quality assurance, which deals mainly with the curriculum. And the curriculum becomes very important in anything. In almost all the qualifications we are offering in the university, there's integration of innovation or even entrepreneurship. Unless if you're doing business management, those topics are not touched on. How do you tell a student that's doing maybe CA, studying to be a CA, to consider being an entrepreneur as their first choice when they leave university? Our curriculum doesn't cover that. And I think that is something that as universities, we can look at and make sure that we are skilling our students with innovation so that when they go back into their communities, all the little activities that are happening for their livelihood and their survival, they are taking that into consideration and making sure that they are able to turn that into business ventures that can ultimately affect their local economies. Another thing that also intrigued me was in relation to the issue of livelihood, most of the livelihoods, when he was reflecting on his childhood, that when his mother was brewing the pineapple and watermelon beer, and that was basically for survival. And I thought to myself, perhaps innovation also thrives where there is hardship. Where there's hardship, that's when people start thinking, let me make a plan. But however, education as well becomes important because without identifying, it's just another survival tactic. Thank you.
You speak on the education system. For example, you made the example of a person who's training to be a CA, studying towards the CA stream. Basically, I see it with engineering, with medicine as well. We almost have universities being pivotal in training people to either go into corporate or keep them and become academics. Are you saying that there is that gap where universities are lacking in training people to become entrepreneurs?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Sure, you can respond.
I wanted to just add something very interesting. For 10 years, I've been lecturing attorneys with the Law Society of South Africa. And one of the most shocking realization was for their fidelity certificate to practice as a lawyer, throughout their law school and their LLB, nobody trained them on how to manage a law firm as a business. So they've been taught their entire years of LLB, law school, on the technicalities of law, how to represent clients and the specialization that they have. But they don't have any competence on managing a law firm as a business. Now you've got 4 people working for you. You must put processes and systems in place. You must have governance, separate your finances, report, file returns, all those kinds of things. Even do your own accounting of your finance. Do you know your finances, how much money you're making? Why are you making this? Why are you charging these fees? No, the magistrate gave us this fee structure and this is all we charge. And that's all that these guys know. And so to just justify the point around there's just this absence of teaching, people this other pathway of being entrepreneurs. But think of it as an avenue to translate your technical skills into business opportunities. I think it's okay that we've laid the background, the foundation, but now as an engineer, we almost need like another module, because other universities all over the world, they have you can take it as an extra module that talks around entrepreneurship, and they give you benefits for doing that. Learn around business model innovation. If you're a CA, if you one day run an accounting firm, this is what life looks like now as an entrepreneur. If you are in construction, next day you run a construction firm, this is what life looks like now. You're no longer just, happy to get an invoice of 150,000 and then you sit tight. You must serve the customers, you must have employees, you must market your business, you must compete with others, you must have a unique proposition. You are a law firm, how do you differ to the other law firm or to the other engineering firm? So to that point, I'm supporting that there's that element that is missing in our ecosystem, especially in educational systems, TVETs, universities, and colleges. Thanks.
Just to echo what you're saying, rather, we had a crisis at the beginning of the year where community service doctors had finished and they were now having to transition into finding jobs as medical doctors in hospitals. But there weren't enough hospitals to give them jobs. So what's the next thing is to be a businessman, open a practice and a surgery, but they have no idea how to run a business. Yeah, open a clinic. They have no idea. They have the medical expertise, but they don't have the systems around how to be a businessman around the technical expertise. Ms. Nakeng?
Good afternoon, everyone. So with me, regarding the conversation that you are having, I want to focus on innovation because I believe that innovation is the backbone of entrepreneurship. But before we can tap into that, because I'm very, very keen on education, I feel as though, as much as we're talking about the higher education and so forth, I had a conversation with Ms. Matabula back then to say, why isn't it that economics could be a compulsory subject from high school? Because we live in economic era, like everything you do recently, it's economics. It's so sad that you'll have conversations with young people regarding our economic and they have no comment whatsoever. Same way we have life orientation as a subject. Why can't we have economics as one of the compulsory subjects from grade 10 until matric and carry it on into our varsity lives? Because that's what will carry into our economic growth as entrepreneurs or as intrapreneurs, because not everyone is made to be a business person. So with that being said, it goes back to when you said we have innovation, but we only tap into it if there is a need or a want for survival.
Thank you. Prof?
Thank you. I think I highlighted a few things during the presentation. One of the things which stood out for me is the argument that Octavius presented. Just to paraphrase, I think what he was saying is that business activities and entrepreneurship is what we need to address issues of rural development, if I understood very well. That sort of echoed with an argument that I had before. I think that was 2014 or 2013, where I sort of wrote an article about how agriculture as a is sort of diminishing in a smaller scale in rural areas. Majority of us, we grew up, practicing small-scale agriculture or subsistence agriculture, but because of different challenges, including, of course, migration of those who has potential to urban areas, you find that those activities are no longer there. So the reason why I wrote that article, I was looking at how Department of Rural Development was closely attached to Department of Agriculture. And I didn't really understand that. I was saying, what about other avenues of creating opportunities for rural development if we are still thinking that rural development is about agriculture? And I think I agree that we need to think beyond agriculture in terms of the activities which can bring about development. Of course, facilitation of enhancing business activities, entrepreneurship, and innovation that can actually assist in terms of helping with the idling youth in rural areas who don't really have anything to do. I mean, I was home recently, and it was sort of sad for me when I was passing where they brew traditional alcohol, and people who are younger than me, 8 in the morning, they're already there drinking. I'm like, you get what I'm saying? So there are a lot of missed opportunities, because these are people who have energy, who can invest such energy into addressing some of the challenges, including poverty and all that. And also I also wanted to look at the examples of innovation. Earlier we were talking about some of innovation examples that you find. I gave an example of the Panorama Road in Mpumalanga, where you find that that route is meant for tourism, and most of the activities which are identified there, it is very innovative. I mean, they talk about God's window. The moment says there's God's window in Mpumalanga, in your mind, you say, I need to go there and see it. And you find that it's just, you just stand in a mountain and you are looking at the trees. But somebody came up with that idea, and because of that, there are a lot of communities which are sort of practicing livelihoods activities around that area. And when the tourists come and they there to witness God's window, what do? They end up interacting with those communities. So there are a lot of innovative ideas that can sort of be developed around communities, and communities can really benefit out of their livelihoods, and such livelihoods, they can be developed towards being entrepreneurial ventures. Thank you.
Prof, it's intriguing. You speak innovation through that marketing and perception about God's window in Mpumalanga. In your head, think Johannesburg CBD, not the roughest parts, but think Johannesburg CBD, put a big steel structure. That's what people pay euros to fly to France and say, Paris, I saw the Eiffel Tower. There's nothing special about it, you know. So using the technical vocation of marketing and creating a system of tourism around that, you have now made people for decades on end want to go get engaged at the Eiffel Tower. It's interesting. OP, probably as just a response to everything that everybody has said, to close off this conversation, and then finally we'll get a few seconds of closing remarks from everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think my view is around how we connect the dots, right? And think of this thing holistically from an ecosystem perspective, right? So you first want to start with the person. Any innovation, entrepreneurship starts with the person. And what profile of a person are we looking for? What competencies they have? What skills they have? What experiences they have? And what aptitude levels do they have to take advantage of whatever challenges that they have? To have the eye for the opportunity, even though it's driven by demand, by need and survival. You have to start with that person. When you start with that person, it then helps you build the other pillars around to ensure you have a system that thrives, right? You've got to have the education, do they have the right knowledge? But you also have to have the infrastructure, because then an idea alone is not enough, right? You may want to start something incredible in Vembe district, in Giyani, in one part of Bochum or Matlala, whatever the case may be, but that's just an idea. You need to have accessible resources around you, whether it's finance, whether it is technical competence, to see some of these ideas come alive. And then once those are in place, you then can start arguing, are you managing them properly? Are you accounting them properly? Are you managing these things sustainably? But all of this is in one dimension. The other dimension is you've got other role players around you that are creating an enabling environment. You can't thrive if you have people around you that are saying, you know what, you went to university to be a lawyer or to be an engineer. We don't understand what the hell is this thing that you want to do. Go find a job, right? One of the things that I could not cover, which also speaks around our view of the rural setting, is the concept of the family. As we start imagining this new life and where we're going, are we carrying along with us our parents? Are we carrying along with us the family unit? Do they know? So you want to educate them, the different role players in the ecosystem, including the the people that are the entrepreneurs or the innovators, but they live in a family that is expecting them to have a job after the 3 year. And no one has educated them to say, listen, there's multiple ways to tackle poverty, you know. I can't imagine what, never mind my sister would have said, after 3 years of doing my BCom accounting, I said I want to start a business. They would have said that is nonsense, you know. So we have to carry everyone along so that we create this conducive environment for the innovator, for the entrepreneur to thrive.
Mr. Motse?
Look, I think I agree with him. I agree with him 120%. But from where I'm sitting, there are also barriers that we need to be alive on. And part of those barriers that we're referring to is infrastructure development. I remember when we were in class of an MBA, there was one lecturer who said to us, immediately in a rural area, if you see there will be a tie road being built, that tie road will automatically drive the economy of that particular area. Everybody suddenly wants to come closer to the tie road. And now businesses are now being built and whatever. So for me, it tells me that we need the willingness of government. It is sad that we're discussing this and the government officials are not here. If they are here, that is great. Because we need the willingness of the government to be able to know to build relevant infrastructure that will be able to be relevant enough and make entrepreneurship to be able to thrive. Let me give a case very quickly. There's a guy called George Sinoshi. He is the first black businessman who was offered a Pick and Pay franchise, right? Now this guy, he went and opened a franchise in Soshanguve of Pick and Pay, and it thrived. He says when he opened, in 4 days he was able to make a revenue of 4 million. And he had a queue of about 4 kilometers, people queuing to want to buy. Now what happened with that guy is, then there was an infrastructure development throughout the years. That the road was supposed to be built and the rank was supposed to be built. That blocked access towards his shop. And that made him to say, okay, I can take the 2 years because the contract is 2 years. But there were issues of corruption and what contractors being changed. And that made and dragged that thing for 4 years until the plane crashed. Now that is a typical example to say when infrastructure development becomes a barrier, it makes even an entrepreneur who's sitting there not to be able to thrive, especially in the rural area. Thank you.
Mrs. Matsebula?
In closure, I'd like for us to, when we're looking at innovation and turning livelihoods in rural communities into viable business ventures, to look at it in a holistic manner. That is looking at our educational systems, that is everything from basic education to higher education, the social and physical and economic conditions that the rural people are exposed to, and also the rural setup in itself. Because like the infrastructure, also the setup, the geographical locations of our rural communities come into place. Because all these factors, when they play together, then they will affect the different activities happening there. Hence, the brain drain that we are experiencing in rural communities, whereby for people to take advantage of the opportunities that they are having, they will have to come to Polokwane, to Gauteng, to KZN, Cape Town, you name it. Most people will not stay in Muleji and say, I want to open a nut business because Kilima every year and Kichedinch. It's a lot. Sorry for the vernac. Yes, but basically for a person to be able to pursue, even after being educated and knowing what is innovation and being able to see it in their communities, for them to be able to practice, they usually will leave their rural setup and go to places where they will speak the same language as them. And that is not just, the recognition is not the only thing. OP also spoke to issues of governance in the rural communities. And the governance and the rigidness of the governance structures that exist in our rural communities also, it is a blocker of innovation and creativeness. Because once, for example, once Moloto comes and she says she wants to bring a trucking business and its main plant should be in Mulej, the chief all of a sudden wants a cut of that share. Then Nduna wants that 2% saying, but you are passing my street every day. There are certain levies that are out of nowhere they have to pay. And all of those things are a blockage for such an environment to be created. So we need to look at everything holistically, and educating people in our communities become important, because that's the only way we will retain the knowledge and the innovation that's taking place. Thank you.
Ms. Nakeng?
So in my conclusion, especially looking at the empowerment of the disempowered communities, which is our rural areas, I believe that innovation and entrepreneurship can play a very significant role in processing and transforming livelihood activities in potential entrepreneurial ventures. And I believe this can be achieved in social innovation. With this, it can be a key driver for transformation, and this will involve reconfiguring our social practices in response to social challenges, and with this aim in enhancing our social well-being. Because, guys, as Black people, we come from a very bad background, and we're still recovering till to date, and it's over 2 decades, I believe. And then another thing that we can do is have a community-led development, where community have initiatives such as smart community concepts. And as you mentioned, this is where businesses be involved in the life of businesswomen, because I do believe that we do drive the entrepreneurial industry. And then also having policy support. I believe, Mr. Mpo, you are part of that, where they support us in policies and governance that can drive and support community projects that attributes to local municipalities, and also private sectors that are involved. I mean, I and then I grew up in Mokopane, and both these areas have a lot, especially Mokopane, it has a lot of rural communities. But the third part is we are within a big mine. But if you go to Mokopane, it says the different statement towards what we have. And then also we can go into digital inclusion. As youth, guys, you know AI is our thing. If you have to be an entrepreneur, you have to know that technology should be your friend. And also having entrepreneurship training, which will provide aspiring entrepreneurs with training, access to capital and business development resources that can nurture our environments in very innovative ways. A lot of young people have big ideas, but also we are scared to share them, because at some point the older generation take them away from us. And with that being said, I feel that the role of entrepreneurship education can emphasize the need of preparing the future entrepreneurs. It might not be us, it can be someone who's in grade 1 right now. And with that, it can equip them with skills development. And like I said previously when I mentioned that economics should be one of the biggest or important subjects from foundation till matric, or your tertiary level. Because with that, everyone will be equipped with the knowledge or mindset of transformation and economic growth. So yes, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Prof?
Thank you. I would like to close with 2 things. One of them is there's this concept, it's an old concept, but it's something that I find that it really works, is the issue of asset mapping. There are a lot of assets that we have in rural areas that we are not aware of. And in most cases, innovative ideas and businesses or small businesses or entrepreneurial activities are not supported because communities don't know. And what happens is that they end up supporting bigger businesses. So asset mapping, what it does is that you go to a certain village or a certain community, you identify all the assets, different assets within the community. And after you have done that, you sort of interact with all the community members to say, instead of going to ShopRite, which is you have to take a taxi to buy eggs, there's actually somebody who's selling eggs this side. Instead of consulting to a doctor in town, actually there's a doctor here, and all that. That does not only allow for businesses to grow, but it also allows for money to circulate within the same community, other than it going out. So I think asset mapping is one of the things that can assist. It's an old method, but I feel like we're not doing that enough. We don't really know what is happening. That's why we're not really supporting each other. The other one is the role of government, NGOs, and different actors into that. I was part of a project when I was in Mpumalanga. Social development came up with a project to identify different innovative ideas within communities and supporting those ideas. So what they did was, if you are saying you want to do bricklaying, they will sort of support you to start with that. So what we were doing as a project was to assess the impact of that after a certain period, to say, after we have supported you, are you able to go beyond just producing bricks for the local? Are you, producing for other, areas as well? So those are some of activities that government and other entities can sort of try to implement to support innovation and also entrepreneurship in rural areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, panelists. But before I let you go, the wonderful people who've taken the time out of their day to be here with us, I'm sure a few of them have questions. I hope my tech team is ready, either with a microphone or somebody's just going to stand and raise their question. And then we will take it from there. I'll see how many questions I can squeeze in, and then my panelists, just mention the panelist's name that you'd want the answer from, but if you don't have a specific panelist, then anyone can take it. Okay, I'll start here in front.
Thank you very much. Mine is very simple. Maybe OP can be able to assist. But we're living in a province where we're predominantly agricultural. We have ZZ2. We have, I think, when you go in towards, we have Zanini as well. We've got potato farms. I think there's one when you go in towards Bochum as well. But however, all those things, immediately when they're harvested, they go to Joburg for processing. That's the greatest problem that I think hinders rural development. And if we were to create industries, factories where they are going to manufacture that, yes, yeah. Can I speak and finish so that I can maintain my train of thoughts? Yeah, so I think that is going to assist in terms of one, how the locals are able to use a point of development to be able to create their own innovative idea to thrive. One, why am I saying that is because in rural areas there's a problem of depopulation. You go to, I'm from a place called Noma, we are 30 the households are 35. So, and in those, there are few people staying there. So if you create a development or a business, one, the nearest places, whether you go to Bochum to be able to ensure that it thrives, or you go to Tiban. You understand what I'm saying? So those are some of the challenges of that we are currently facing, and we've got land to be able to, that we can be able to draw agricultural proceeds to be able to ensure that development or the businesses or the businesses that we're actually doing are actually thriving. So how are we going to be able to address such kind of things? I think it's Statistic General who once spoke that an area that cannot have money circulate for 24 hours is bound to collapse, because even if you send money from Joburg to send your parents, they buy in Pick and Pay. The next day, the SVB take it back to Joburg. So it becomes a problem of development. But I think if we were to focus on industry processing our own agricultural products in-house, rural development will have the potential to be able to address our own our rural areas. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Doc, that's a fantastic question, by the way. Very difficult question, and there's not a straight answer. There's multiple answers to it, because in some way, it's a question that could also be tabled to the new premier of Limpopo. So here's my 2 cent attempt at it. You need to have intention. So for this kind of an answer to be fully addressed, we have to have leadership that is very intentional in building out a localization strategy anchored on agriculture. But this localization strategy should have what I consider to be characteristics of containment. You lament the SG talking about the circulation of rand. For decades, it's been lamented that we don't have high retentions of rent. So money comes in, goes out, comes in, goes out. You may even, explore the total capital that is invested through social grants. That money comes in, goes out. And this is money from government. Goes in, goes out. The question is, where does it go? Right? So it goes to products. Right? So those products. Now the structure of our economic system, so the structure of our economy as a country is what also presents other interesting challenges. In other markets, if you compare us to other markets where some government systems are more federal based. So we are, what's the title of our government system? But we've got provinces, right? But the autonomy of provinces is not as clear cut when you've got a federal system. Meaning, so a province can't say, listen, we're closing our borders. We've counted the list of products that are consumed by this community here, by this population of 5.6 or 6.5 million here, and we want to produce for ourselves here. The province, I don't think it can do that because of the structure of our economy. The argument from government is that whether the production of these products are in Joburg, wherever it is, overall we still believe we are improving the lives of people. So, but there's a way in which you can do it. There's a tactful ways you can do it. I think it starts by building out micro localization. Do we have a list of products that we aspire to retain, and start building out those and compete? There's another question. So the government must also take the first loss, because if you want to build a full-on infrastructural capability, right, you're going to have to compete with other well-capitalized markets that can produce this at a 2 cent or 5 rand. So, for example, if you take, let's take household goods, right? Household goods that we consume on regular basis. So, from food to detergents and whatnot. How much of that do we produce? But it must be intention as part of our government strategy to say there are these products that we want to localize for the following reason. That we've done a case study, or we've done an analysis to compare if it is procured from this place, it is coming from one corner of Durban and another corner of Joburg, but in comparison, if we produced it here, the value add, the return on it would be more transformative than we currently have. But then you're entering into a conversation that requires a lot of lobbying, even as far as the Department of Trade and Industry, because then the industry then lobbies at a national level for introduction and participation of their products in some of this in this market. So if you say let's make an example, beer. So let's take a beer. So we've got a South African brewery here, right? A bottle of beer costs about 4 rand to produce. You buy it maybe at about 8 times, whatever the case may be. We consume a lot of that product here. How much of it is it localized, right? And those are the things that you then start arguing. You could go Tiger brands, you could go Bukomo, you could go famous brands, you could go Unilever. It's all these things that you can. So the lobbying now needs to happen at that level, right? Do we have that level of lobbying? I don't think so. So there are also, what is the word? You end up having to take on deals or agree that we, as long as you can invest in some way or the other by training, skills development, jobs, whatever in the immediate term, and then long term, this is what we do. But it's a hard one. It's a hard one to do when we are structurally designed this way, because you can't lock the province. Take bread, for example. And we've got all this produce from agricultural land that we have, but we are not able to contain it. And the question is the cost of having the industrial capacity to make it a consumable product. But we can finance it. But does government gets its allocation from national? National disagrees on the policy. So there's those dynamics that if with the right intention, it's possible. It's not impossible. It just requires a lot of fights and a lot of, because of our design, our construct is just not conducive.
Thank you so much. I'll take that gentleman there. New rule, 30 seconds to ask your questions, 1 minute to give an answer to my panelists.
All right, thank you very much. My question is that, given that you demonstrated the need to commercialize rural livelihoods, how do we then greatly do that, given that there is a need to actually have this technological inclination to ensure that those goods can be able to have a sustainable shelf life and to also have an enhanced value chain. So how do we greatly enhance that, given that our educational system is not addressing such challenges and existential support systems are not addressing such challenges in terms of enhancing that at grassroots level? How do we greatly make sure that the rural inhabitants have that level of technological inclination? Thank you.
Simple answer. You need to build your design institutes, your laboratories closest to where the biggest supply of opportunities exist. So because of the total capital required, you are at best ideal to locate them in your universities of Limpopo, for example, in Teflop, where you should have a design institute. You should have a lab that allows public to put through their products to be tested, assessed, evaluated, and commercialized. You should have a commercialization unit in those universities. I don't think we've got as much commercialization units capacitated and resourced in comparison to, say, for example, the University of Stellenbosch. But that's what you need. That will easily answer that question, so that you are shipping it to the lab at University of Limpopo, Venda, Vembe, TVET, or whatever the case may be, and then that's how it is. But the cost of it also needs to be passed down. It needs to be refinanced, because you are likely not to have the money to finance the commercialization of that. So it has to be financed elsewhere.
Thank you so much. Just to implore the topic here, my question is, what would be the role of our business school, TGSL, in enabling this entrepreneurship and innovation in rural development and poverty alleviation? And I'm looking at two multiple facets. Number one, participation in commercialization and industrialization. We've seen business schools own hotels. They own a lot of businesses. Does TGSL do so as well? UMP is one example. There are seafarers owning a multinational hotel in Mpumalanga. And then attracting entrepreneurs into the skills pool or the employee pool of the business school. We see other business schools having, like when I applied for DBL, I had a professor who's a multi-millionaire in Johannesburg, being allocated as a supervisor. Do we have those here? Do we attract real entrepreneurs who, of course, they have their masters and DBLs and DBAs? Do we attract them to come and be lecturers full-time, not just lecturing to come and give one session and go? Are we leveling at that level? Because I'm looking, we have a private hospital or an a hospital built here. What is the TGSL doing in partnership with the hospital that's being built here to assist? Lastly, we have like special cases. 1 out of 1,000 students makes it, something like that. I'm looking at my brothers and sisters. How many of them are going to make it actually? Or how many of them are going to queue for unemployment? What can TGSL do to cap that while it's still coming? Thank you so much.
That's for you.
That's yours.
Thank you. I think you asked a lot of important questions. And the Dean is here, will assist with some of those questions. But I think what is important is that some of the things that you have mentioned is things that is discussions that we are having currently. I think on the strategic document that we're working on, we were actually talking about having a qualification which will allow, for example, the doctors who will be at the hospital to be able to have, I think it's what you talked about earlier as well, to say you find that people are professionals, but they don't know how to run the businesses that they are establishing out of the profession that they are doing. So it's something that actually we're talking about when we were drafting the strategic document that we're working on now. The issue of attracting lecturers who are actually doing the business itself. It's something that we are doing. I think, for example, in development, one of the lecturers that is teaching human resource management is someone who's having a lot of experience in terms of working with human resource related activities. So it's things that we are doing. We might be doing it in a small scale, but it's something that we are actually discussing on how to expand so that whatever education that we are giving is aligned with the practical activities which are happening in the ground. Thank you.
My last question.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My question is, I am a financial advisor, so I wanted to ask, where do we then factor the education around money in the ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship? Because I think that many training and development is focused around education, but before the entrepreneur goes into the business, do they know their relationship with money? Because I believe that for the sustainability of that business, the relationship of that entrepreneur with money itself is very important, because they need to then see their innovation as for survival at first, and then they need to see it as a system that generates money, and then they also need to see it as a system that generates wealth. So where do we put the education around money in the ecosystem of entrepreneurship and innovation? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. So straight answer, we put it at the crux of what we call investment readiness. It's right at the crux of investment readiness. Existing practices are currently done by the likes of Old Mutual, Masses and a fund. When I ran a 150 million fund, that was one of the things that we were offering. If we're investing 2 million into a business, we want to make sure that you are ready to deal with that money. When I ran a 250 million fund at ABSA, those were the first things that we ensured. But many a times we don't. So before we train, we have to assess your behavior and your attitude towards money. And I think Paul spoke about the accounts, how you manage the accounts. So it's very core to when you receive funding, when you receive market opportunities, because then you are creating commercial value, and you have to have a certain level of knowledge or competence on dealing with money. So you're 100% spot on, but that's where we located across innovation, development or entrepreneurship development, investment readiness, financial, whether it's financial planning or financial management, it's core to how you evolve as an entrepreneur.
Look, the member that asked there, it's very important, the question that he has mentioned, and I wanted us to address it, Prof, that what does TGSL do to make themselves to be so attractive that everybody else can come to you. And that is very crucial for us. And I don't want us to take it for granted, because what is asking as a person who decided to leave TGSL and go to another university somewhere in Gauteng. And we need to bring him back. And that is very crucial for us, especially as the Black Management Forum. Hence, Prof, that MOU that is pending for BMF, that MOU is gonna bring the flood of our members coming directly to you, who are simply saying, you know what, we wanna bring value here. But the issue about it is to say, let's attract the relevant people who are going to be. One of the other universities that I'm not going to mention the names, they came to us. And what they said to us, Prof, is to say, what should we do if we want to open a new a business school? And we went and fetched big guns in the BMF, like the likes of Boponang Mohale and whatever. You know what we did with them? And that, you know what the advice was? You need to make sure that in your business school, the people who sit in that board are business people, because they're going to think in a business way. And that on its own is going to bring an impact in this particular school. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the true sense of business school and respecting time as people who are inclined towards business, we were only 3 minutes late, so thank you very much for today. And can you give us one more round of applause?
Thank you to our panel and our moderator. You see, we're just very highly qualified people. OP, 200 young, male and guided in 2014. I'm 200 young, male and guided in 2019. Lungelo is 200 young, male and guided in 2024. So that's just the type of people that I hang around with. With that said, Prof. Mongale, please, for the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Njogo, for giving me this opportunity. When I started here, I searched on Google to find out what is a public lecture. Because I was asking myself, what are we doing here? Then the answer was, a public lecture is one means employed for educating the public about a particular subject. So the answer was spot on what we are doing here. Because today we are gathered here to educate the public about a specific subject, in this case, innovation in rural area. So I was led that we are doing something that is in order, something that is recognized worldwide. Because when I looked at Wikipedia, they said a public lecture started in around 1620 or so. So this is a practice that went more than 100 years, with the only purpose of teaching the public. Because as we always say, as university, we like to close ourselves inside our buildings. And then there was a statement which said, we do research for the sake of research, but today, at least as UL, particularly the Faculty of Management and Law, we are going out to the public to teach or to educate public. So I am very, very thankful to the two departments who organized this. So then, as the proceedings went on, I realized that indeed, we were learning. We were learning. Our main speaker touched on the issue, saying the business is the oxygen. It's not a pillar. It's not the backbone. He said no. The business is the oxygen of the economy. So I found that to be very, very profound, because I was once a biology teacher, so I know the effects of an oxygen in the system. Without oxygen, as he said, we die. So without small businesses, economies die. We are told that what is called Asian tigers these days, they were built by small businesses. So indeed, it is the oxygen of the economy. So again, my duty here is to say thank you to everybody who participated here. Let me direct my special thanks to my boss, our dean, executive dean. We thank you very much for allowing us to take this kind of educational journey so that we educate the public. I would like to also thank the two departments for organizing such a wonderful event. I hope it is not the last time, because I'm quite sure that a lot of us have learned. Particularly, we could hear that the hunger here is about how to run businesses. We get the qualifications, yes, but then how do we convert them into businesses? Because not all of us will be employed in the formal settings, so we need some kind of training in running businesses. So events like this, they will contribute to that. So I am really, really thankful for all the organizers of this event. Also, let me not forget the audience. They have been very wonderful. They took part. They asked very important questions. The only limitation was time, because I could hear that people wanted to ask more and more questions. So once more, I would like to say thank you to the two schools for organizing this wonderful event. Like I said, we hope that they will keep on doing this good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you. You may give yourself a round of applause. You've been a wonderful audience. Highly, I really appreciate it. Just again, to add on the question of what we're doing, the apology from our director, Prof. Mukwena. He's not here because I left him in Ghana. I flew in this morning because we're trying to, I left him in Ghana because we are in the drive, to create partnerships, not just in South Africa, but even outside South Africa, so that we are an impactful business school. And again, we have people like Prof. Msandiwa in the MBA program who has over 40 years as a director in industry from Dinel to Sasol, and such. And we recently were joined by Prof. Matebula, so the people, I'm not sure if they're millionaires, but I know that when it comes to being industry experts, they definitely are industry experts. Thank you yet again. I'm going to ask that our executive dean leads our guest, so Mr. Phukubye and the panel and the moderator with Dr. Mukwili leads them to the other side of the building. Our dean knows where. And then after them, if our guests, so all our external guests, please follow our executive dean. The colleagues will show you the way. So all our external guests, so if you're not a UL, if you're not from UL, so you're here visiting us, you may follow Ms. Lerato there. She's going to show you the way where we are going. And then for our students, Mamonare is gonna be here. She's the one, because you guys are used to her and she's used to you. So you guys will have a conversation when the adults have left, So yeah, Prof, please. Our families also, please, and our staff members, all staff members, also please follow Prof Sibanda. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. See you on episode 2.